but the kind you learned is still not what you found it. Yeah. Where did you learn it from? Who taught it to you? And for what reason did they teach it to you? You got to keep that in mind. Even though you may be sincere in your worship of Christ, and no one questions that, and no one questions Christ. All right, I want you to understand that. That does not mean, though, that your sincerity cannot be used as a base to manipulate you against yourself and to manipulate you against your people. You're still obligated to know self and to understand self and to know the world and to understand the world as a part of your spiritual development. You understand? And therefore, we have too many people who are caught up in the church who still divorce, who still fight, who still do all the other things that we talk about here. When I look at the Anita Hill and what's her name, Judge Thomas deal, here you have a misplaced morality going on there. But to me, it's the epitome of the way white folk want morality to work among black folk. Her concern with morality ultimately working itself away in a way that it still maintains the system and maintains dissension within her ethnic group, which is the reason why it was taught, by the way. Now let's look at the other end that you're speaking of here. The second part having to deal, it was in my mind just that fast. It went, the other thing is, when you're separated from yourself, you're separated from your real self. You're separated from your potential. And there's a vacuum created, and there's also a pain created as well. A vague feeling of discomfort and dis-ease that's extremely discomforting. The individual then must relieve this pain and must relieve this emptiness that has occurred as a result of being separated from who he or she really is. The individual asks who he or she really is and somehow must arrive at an answer. When other people who rob you and separate you from yourself, and this is the essence of brainwashing, you see, to separate the individual from his identity, to make him uncomfortable, to make him confused, to make him suffer pain, and say, now, if you think about yourself this way, if you see yourself this way, if you assume that this is who you are, you will come together again and you will be healed, or you will be at one with yourself. In this way, then, a false and artificial identity is placed within the person. And the person will often identify with that input or that false introjected soul. And because it brings them a certain amount of comfort, or because they see it as protecting them against destruction or annihilation and so forth, they will cling to it and see it as a part of themselves. And in this sense, then, blacks have been made to think, to a good extent, that by escaping their African self and trying to deny their color and trying to escape African culture and so forth, we have opened ourselves up to being implanted with a white demon. And it is that white demon in us that manipulates our bodies and manipulates our minds. It is one of the reasons why we lose self-control. We say things that we know we shouldn't be saying, but we can't what? Help ourselves. We eat things that we know we shouldn't be what? Eating, but the appetite is out of control, you see. And if you look at what you say, if you look at what you eat, if you look at what you desire, you will see all those things that you eat, that you desire, that you want, are things that maintain and enrich white folk. It means then that the demon that's implanted in the place of the real African self is a demon that works for its creator, you see, and it works to maintain its creator in a place of domination. That is why the process of reclaiming our African selves and coming back to ourselves is a process of exorcising devils. And that is the reason why a reclamation of ourselves is a reclamation of health, a reclamation of self-control, and a reclamation of love, and a reclamation of positive relations between black men and black women, and between ourselves and the world. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
I want to add something to that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Last week I was listening to LIB, and Sharpton spoke on the very same thing that you're talking about. He was talking about Magic Johnson and his whole thing. And he was saying that just to practice safe sex is not enough. Because Hollywood is not interested in building the black family. And he's saying that not only safe sex, but to, brothers who are married, and sisters as well, not to be promiscuous. He's saying that once we understand that who the black woman is, and she has to be protected because of other civilizations.
And it cries out for social transformation in our community as well. Because that disease, it startles my class often when I tell people you must recognize that disease is not only a biological entity, but it is also a sociological entity. It is a political entity. These diseases and the way they operate in the world also reflect political formations or the absence of political formations, you see. And it implies a social structure. So if you got a social structure caught up with drugs and other kinds of things, you will see that disease visiting this kind of social structure in a way that it would not in another social structure and cultural structure. So in the end, again, these things cry out for a transformation of African cultures. We see it in African American cultures, we see it today, and it cries out for a transformation of political structures as well as economic structures in the black community. Mm-hmm.
One more question.
Okay.
You have time for one more?
Yes, I do, buddy. Mm-hmm.
This is number. So, I think, you spoke earlier about the confusion that the multi-cultural curriculum is going to cause in our community.
Excuse me, brother, can you speak a little louder, please?
You spoke earlier about the confusion that the multicultural curriculum is going to cause in our community. Should we have an expectation that the public school system or the school system that we're sending our kids through is going to prepare them or educate them in order to take their dominant position?
Certainly, Diane Ravitch, we're all familiar with Diane, of course, which sort of started this whole mess off with Leonard.